Welcome back to the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. I'm your host, Wade Mathews, and again, joining me is Bryan Stinson, and we are talking about emergency preparedness cooking. So we are talking about some indoor cooking, Bryan, right? Some small equipment cooking.
Yeah, what do you do if you can't cook outside? I mean, you don't want to bring in your big charcoal and your propane, those kinds of things. What do you do if outside it's bad weather? You can't be cooking outside. So we have a few things that are safe to do indoors. One of the first things, these are called MREs. A lot of people are familiar with those, meals ready to eat. Now, you can eat them cold, but if it's in the middle of winter something, you want to have something that's warms your belly as well as your soul. So some of them have what they call these flameless heaters. They're really easy to use. They come with directions of exactly how to do it. Essentially, all you do is you open it up. It says has a fill line right there. All you're doing is you're getting wet this little pad, if you can see that, and it causes a chemical reaction that just creates heat. So if I can get it open, there we go. Just fill to that line. Get that. Yeah, it takes barely any water at all. Make sure that that packet gets completely saturated. Oh, I can already feel it starting to get hot. Woo! Slide in. Oh yeah, you see that steam coming off of there. It's toasty. Slide in your entree. Ooh, it's kind of stinky too. Now, one thing it does say on here, even though this is safe to use indoors, it needs to be in an open area because it does produce noxious odors. And then you can slide it right back in the box that the entree came in for easy handling. It's getting all puffy. Now, we'll just let that sit there for a little while. It says to leave it for about 8 to 10 minutes. You just check it periodically to make sure that your entree is all warmed up. Make sure it's all getting in there.
One thing to mention about MREs too, they are already cooked and they are ready to eat. You can eat them cold if you don't have the means of heating them up. You can eat them cold. May not be as enjoyable, and they don't all come with that heater pack, do they?
Right.
Not all MREs come with that, so you might want to make sure that you're getting, if that's what you're expecting, that's what you're buying, is those that have that heater pack in them.
Right. Check with your retailer. They should say on the outside of the box if you buy them by the box. But you can, if you're buying individually like this, you can usually look inside and see that green envelope. Make sure that if you're wanting the ones with the flameless heaters, that you find the ones with the green envelope. So if you buy them by the box, it should say on the box. If you have any questions, talk to your retailer about that. So we'll let that warm up for a little while. Now another one, we use this gel fuel. This is a kind of a small backpacking size. They usually come in larger ounce sizes. But this is a really good way of warming up small amounts of food inside your house as well. They're often called chafing gel. They're used in chafing dishes. You see them at buffets. They have them underneath to keep the food warm, but you can also use it to cook with as well. It doesn't get to really high temperatures, but enough that you can warm, like I said, small amounts of food. All you've got to do to use it. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we do, we want to avoid, I guess, brand names, but some people might recognize the name Sterno. That was a brand name. That's a brand name, but that's kind of what this is that we're talking about. But a gel fuel is the generic. All right.
Okay. Yeah, you can see that because of the heat out here, it's got a little hot inside, or got a little pressure build up inside of that can, so it popped on me. But all you've got to do is just add a flame to it, and there it goes. It's perfectly safe to use. It's hard to see in the sunlight. It's kind of a purplish blue flame. The nice thing about it is you can, because the heat doesn't radiate very wide from it, you can actually hold a cup over the top of it and it won't burn your finger. Now, You always want to be careful. Again, you've got an open flame here, so have a fire extinguisher or another means of putting it out before you ever start it. But you have about 3 to 5 minutes, and you'll get a cup like this to a complete rolling boil. And oftentimes when you're just heating up small amounts of food for one person, that's about as much water as you'd need for one meal, reconstituting some of those dehydrated meals.
And you can
So
use those gel fuels within a little folding stove, a backpack stove, besides
yeah,
just
I mean,
using it
you've
by
got different
itself,
little,
right?
you can use it in a stove like this. There's some of them that you can get commercially made ones that are commercially made stoves that are specifically for these kinds of fuels. But yeah, there's lots of different ways to do it. You can also just, if you are using it outdoors, get some rocks or something, prop it up. I've used it indoors, just using another pot on the outside, putting it in there that I can put a pot on top. One thing you want to think about though, you don't want to put it right on top, because what happens, you'll snuff out the flame. So you've got to have a little bit of flame being able to go, or a little bit of air going in there. Now, when you're done, you don't have to burn all of the fuel in there. All you've got to do is put the lid back on it. Don't scrunch it down yet. Let the flame go completely out. Give it a few moments to make sure it's completely out. Then you just seal it all back down, and you're ready to use it again for the next time.
Probably want to let that can cool off before you touch it too much, right?
Exactly, yeah. And going along with this, some other things that you can do indoors that are safe, with the caveat, asterisk always, of when you have an open flame, be careful. You can use candles. Candles those are something that you can use to cook indoors with. You're not cooking Thanksgiving meals. You're warming up usually small amounts of water or small amounts of food. If you are going to be heating up a can of food, we talked about your can of chili, make sure you open the top of that. Don't heat it up while it's still sealed, because you can see what happens when something gets hot. When it's still sealed, you open it, it'll explode and you could injure yourself. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
kind of some of your indoor cooking kinds of things. Most of your camp stoves are not recommended. I know there's some butane stoves that might be. You need to check with the manufacturer to make sure that your butane, your propane stoves are safe to use indoors. This is not something you want to have indoors. This is a great stove for outdoor cooking, really small, camping. Right, I've got it on demonstration of some cooking gadgets. I like to have toast in the morning. So you can have, it's just a little device that you can put on top of an open flame. You toast one side of your bread. It's not going now, so I'm not burning myself. Just flip it over and you toast the other side. You can use that on a campfire. You can use it on a grill over some charcoal. So that's a good way of doing toast. Some other,
And it
I'm
looks
sorry, go
like
ahead.
that bottle is just a basic propane bottle that you might use with a propane lantern as well. You can get
Yeah,
those at the hardware store.
yeah, these are the same kinds that they go with the lanterns. They go with those camping stoves. So yeah, these are really easy to come by. Safety, don't store these indoors. Store it in a building outside from your residence. Probably not even recommended to store that in your garage. Okay, some other things. I mean, there's all sorts of different companies or brands of little folding backpacking stoves. These are great for taking out with you somewhere. You can use any kind of fuel. If you're bringing fuel with you, like charcoal, or you can use these little handy fuels, you can use those in there. But you can use sticks, twigs, leaves, whatever. So you're not actually carrying the fuel with you as well. That's a great way of cooking on something that's portable and collapsible like that. A good thing for your maybe disaster supply kit, these little military folding stoves. They come like this with the fuel inside of it. You can open it like that and put a larger pot on top of it. Or if you only have something small, you fold it down and you can cook on it just directly like that. Now they often come with little cubes of fuel. I'm trying to remember what there's, hexamine. Hexamine is one of the kinds of fuel, but there's all sorts of different ones. Usually what I recommend to people, if you are cooking outdoors, use this as a fire starter. You can just add, like I said before, sticks, twigs, and leaves to something like this to preserve that thing of fuel. This right here, if we lit that, that'll last about 7 to 8 minutes, which is way more than enough to get a large cup of water to a complete rolling boil. You can cook quite a bit of food on that. It gets pretty intensely hot.
Right, and so you kind of remind me, we need to have the matches in our kit. You know, if you're going to light that, the twigs, leaves, branches in your camp stove there, or the hexamine fuel and the folding stove, you got to have a way to ignite that. Just make sure you've got your matches, waterproof matches. Even the little the Coleman light sticks that you've got there that you use to light the gel fuel with. You know,
Yeah.
may not be as practical, but you got to have a way to start that fire. Flint and steel, even, I guess, if that's all you've got, if you know how to use that. But have a way to light that fuel, whatever your fuel is, in your emergency kits.
Now you're talking about flint and steel. I've tried really hard just sparking onto something like this. That's really a hard thing to light that way. So if all you have to start a fire is your flint and steel, maybe get a fire going and then take a stick out of that and use that stick with the flame already on it to light something like this. It's hard to go directly from the sparks to get something like that going.
Right. So we're almost ready for another break, but I think you want to check out that MRE and see how it's doing, and and then we'll wrap up this segment.
Oh, that is piping hot. You can see how fast that was. Open it up. Got to be careful. Steam coming out of there.
Now, Bryan, what happens to is the liquid still in there, or is the liquid gone?
The liquid's still in there. In fact, if it didn't get all the way on the pad, oh yeah, it's still pretty hot. The liquid's still in there. It's not completely absorbed into the chemical pad. And that's still hot enough. You could still, like, this has rice that comes with it as well. It's still warm enough that you could throw the rice in there and warm that up as well. Because I know that the cold rice in the MREs, not very good. You can see that's smoking. That's still pretty toasty hot.
So you have to be careful taking those out of there, because that water is still probably scalding. But you're saying there's time to cook another one in there, put another one in there, and heat it up as well.
Yeah, these last. I've seen these last up to about 15 minutes, and still being pretty toasty hot.
Okay, Bryan, thank you very much. So what do we have coming up next?
Well, let's talk about a little bit Dutch oven cooking.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we come back. We've got Dutch oven cooking for you. We'll be right back.
Hey, hope you enjoyed this episode of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. Comment or reply to us on Twitter or Facebook at Be Ready Utah with hashtag BRUPrepCast, or in the comments on YouTube. Don't forget to share these videos with your family, friends, neighbors, and coworkers, because anytime is a good time to talk about emergency preparedness.